Hello everyone, this is AndresRestart, and today we are talking about how some Nintendo fans are furious about this latest bit of news from Nintendo. And this latest bit of news is about Xenoblade Chronicles X Definitive Edition. And from what I've seen of this trailer, it has me very excited. Today should be a fat W for Xenoblade fans. Yet the discussion has turned more into, where's the Switch 2 reveal? Why are we getting this? What is going on? And so today what I want to talk about is how the expectation should have always been Xenoblade news first, and then Switch 2 news should come a little bit later. So I have some thoughts on this latest news for Xenoblade Chronicles X. We'll be diving a little bit into why Nintendo's having us wait this long for the reveal, but I'll also be sharing some additional leaks that have come out about Switch 2 as well. So there's several things I want to talk about today. I'll be playing a lot of Xenoblade X footage in the background while we sort of just chat about what's been going on overall. But before going forward here, let me take this moment to ask that if you do enjoy my content, to please subscribe and hit the notification bell, and if you're unsure, watch through this video and then decide. So first, let's talk about the Xenoblade X trailer, then we'll talk about the controversy surrounding the trailer, and then we'll get into the leaks that have come out in the last day or so. So with this trailer, there are some things that I've been shared that are filling me with great optimism about this release of the game. This is looking to be a fantastic version. If you missed it when we got our first initial look at Xenoblade Chronicles X for Switch, I did put out a graphics analysis from the first trailer, and my thoughts on the game's visuals still stand even with this trailer, so you can check that out after this video if you would like. But beyond that, there have been some things we have noticed that are exciting. For example, I'm sharing this couple of screenshots here. The top image is a look at Xenoblade Chronicles X on Wii U. The bottom image is a look at Xenoblade Chronicles X on the Nintendo Switch. And what you may notice is that the UI and the font are dramatically different. I think what's kind of a big deal, and I was looking at this on my phone and I thought that really said a lot. I could not make out all the small little numbers looking at this image far away on my phone, but when looking at the bottom image, it was all still very clear. And one of my biggest issues with Xenoblade Chronicles X back on Wii U is that the font size was much too small. And back then, my eyesight was a lot better because this was many years ago, more than 9 years ago actually. And so the UI has been changed, it stands out more, it's more clear, and the font is literally larger. It is easier to read, and I think this is actually really important. And it sort of seems to share the DNA of the enhancements we saw with Xenoblade Chronicles 1 Definitive Edition, where the UI stood out as well, it popped. We're seeing a lot of that here as well. And there also appears to be some similarities with the UI from Xenoblade Chronicles 3 on top of that. But this is a noticeable and big improvement to the game. It's probably my most requested change to Xenoblade Chronicles X over all these years. But there are other things we saw from the trailer. Now, it was many years ago that I played Xenoblade Chronicles X, but to my understanding, that character with the weird helmet was not the character that you saw at all at any point throughout the main campaign, and this character appears to be some sort of blade for hire, a mercenary of kinds that you can hire, and those names apply to a lot of the big concepts of this game. So that's interesting. It's showing that there are changes to the main campaign. There's even some boss fights that look like you wouldn't be able to access until far later. And another interesting thing that people have noticed is that the level cap is no longer at 60 anymore. So they are expecting you to reach even higher levels throughout this experience. So these are all interesting, good changes. But then we get a little bit of a look at the new content, the new world that we can explore. It looks like we have a little bit more of a look at who the Black Knight is. We see a little bit of their head, their hair from behind. It seems like Elma had a relationship with this character, and there's even like an Ouroboros looking like Skell, so a nod towards Xenoblade Chronicles 3, but perhaps also the combination of two different users of that Skell. Maybe one of them being this character we see with the black hood, maybe the Black Knight, and also maybe Elma. But another thing I'll mention is that we get a look at this character here, who might be the character wearing the weird looking helmet, and they appear to be of a race that's related to Celica. So we might get more plot details on that race, which personally I felt like we didn't see too much of in the initial main campaign for Xenoblade Chronicles X. So I really like what we've seen from this trailer. There's some exciting stuff here. This wasn't specifically called an overview trailer, which we did talk about earlier this week, that there were some rumors suggesting that, so I'm keeping in mind that this wasn't an overview trailer. Now, if we get an overview trailer later this month, then maybe that rumor still holds up, but it was just a trailer, which was suggested to us by Pioro earlier this week. Which is part of the reason why I'm a little bit confused as to why people are so upset about this trailer today and them really wishing it was Switch 2 news. Pioro kind of told us that this is what was going to happen this week, and so from that standpoint alone, we probably shouldn't have been expecting Switch 2 news, at least until they give us news on Xenoblade Chronicles X. Now, maybe you didn't want to trust Pioro, even though Pioro has one of the best track histories ever when it comes to leaks, especially having to do with Nintendo, but it always made sense for us to get Xenoblade news around this time. The game's coming out in March. It makes sense for there to be another trailer before we even get an overview trailer. So this seems like the right time for when we would get that kind of news. Not to mention, it's only January 9th. We're just a few days into the new year. Nintendo's marketing team is still getting back into things. They're just coming back from the holiday. So they're probably not going to jump into some big, massive announcements so quickly. I understand that there were some rumors suggesting that a Switch 2 reveal might happen around this time, but let's remind ourselves that they were rumors, meant to be taken with a grain of salt, to be skeptical of. Consider them as a possibility, sure, but don't outright 100% believe that they are going to happen. There was one insider on Family Boards by the name of Ninspider that suggested that a Switch 2 reveal could happen this early, but they also said it might just be Xenoblade Chronicles X news, and what was it? Xenoblade Chronicles X news. So there was no misleading here. And if we just think about this from a common sense perspective, this news does not tell us that we're not getting Switch 2 news in the month of January. That still may happen. It's what I think is going to happen. If anything, us getting the Xenoblade Chronicles news out now strengthens the idea that there's still plenty of time for Nintendo to give us big announcements, maybe about Switch 2, later in the month. And something that I've been talking about for a while is that if we are to be getting a Switch 2 reveal in January, it wouldn't be in the beginning of the month. It would be a little bit later. I've thought more so the second half, but I've opened up to maybe even it happening next week, although even then there's reason to doubt that. But the thinking behind this has to do with the fact that Nintendo just had their holidays. There are people who bought a Nintendo Switch and games for that console. And so if Nintendo was unwilling to reveal the Switch 2 during this period of time for the holidays, then maybe they would also not be willing to completely upset those who bought a Switch during that time immediately after the holidays. There needs to be a little bit of a gap. I'm not saying it has to be a tremendous gap, but a little bit of a gap. And so revealing the Switch 2 in the first full week of the year, I just don't think would be tasteful. In the second full week, the third full week, or the final week of January, maybe those can happen, but this week just always seemed unlikely, and I don't think people should be overreacting here and thinking that nothing's going to happen this month regarding Switch 2, just because on January 9th, when we expected there to be Xenoblade Chronicles news, we got Xenoblade Chronicles news, and Nintendo didn't upset all their holiday buyers by revealing the Switch 2 so early on into the year. There's plenty of time left. Let's not overreact here. And I understand the Switch 2 craze. We're all hungry for it. We've all been waiting for such a long time. And there have been leaks coming out about this console every single day. We even got more over the span of the last 12 hours or so. Here on Twitter, NecroFelipe from Universal Nintendo is sharing an image that's been going around of what appears to be, maybe, let me put it in this tab here, of the Switch 2. It's just a corner shot. We can see the bezel here. We can see the buttons. They don't look like color buttons, which, if this is true, oh well, we're not getting them, but just seeing the nice black buttons is still nice. It still looks cool. We've already seen how the Joy-Cons apparently look, and they look pretty nice. But this may be an actual image of the Switch 2. So that alone is interesting. But then also, something else that's been going around is this image of apparently the GameStop database of different Switch 2 peripherals, including an express microSD card. In other words, microSD cards that are faster and more capable than the normal microSD cards, express versions. So they will be able to read faster, and this is going to facilitate better loading and things of that nature. And we've expected this already, but now we're seeing some actual evidence from GameStop listings here. And if there are peripherals like this already in GameStop's database, then yes, this bodes well for the Switch 2 news to come soon. So I wouldn't worry that much. I think a Switch 2 reveal in the month of January still seems pretty likely, and even if it isn't in January, Nintendo's already told us that news is coming soon, and it's very clear this console is around the corner. All these different leaks wouldn't be happening if it wasn't. But why has Nintendo had us waiting this long? What gives? I think part of the reason why they haven't revealed it yet for this year of 2025 is purely just because they're coming back from the holidays, as I mentioned earlier. But why have we waited until this late? Because they did initially promise us back in May that they would have a major announcement about the console before the end of the fiscal year, March 31st, 2025. So they could have done it at any point after that announcement back in May throughout 2024 and these beginning months of 2025. Yes, they could have done it last year, but they also could have done it during these last 3 months of the fiscal year at the beginning of 2025. So it's just one of those things where they didn't lie, they just left a large window, and it looks like this news is coming out at the very end of the window. But ultimately, I think what's going on right now, and I think it also ties into why there's so many different leaks going on right now before the reveal, is that Nintendo had a plan, and that plan was pushed back. We did have a lot of reports going back to over a year ago that Switch 2 would launch in the second half of 2024. And then going back to last February or March, reports started coming out that the Switch 2 had been delayed. Now, some people don't want to believe those reports, but those reports suggested that Switch 2 would come out this March. But given that we haven't seen a reveal yet, I think that's a pretty unlikely thing to happen. I don't think it's a reasonable expectation at this point. Of course, we'll see what actually happens, right? But ultimately what I'm getting at here is I just think that there were plans for the console to come out sooner. Initially, maybe it was for holiday 2024, then maybe things were pushed back a few more months to maybe March, and now I'm thinking things have been pushed back just a little bit more, which at the end of the day may end up being just about a half-year delay, which when we're talking about delays of big projects, that really isn't that much time in the grand scheme of things. If Switch 2 ends up coming out sometime between the months of April through July, that's not that much later. Now sure, maybe this wait has been exacerbated by the fact that the Switch 1 is dated hardware, and that we're looking at one of the longest generations ever for Nintendo, and that's purely because this Nintendo Switch has been so successful. It has maintained momentum so well even up to this point. And so these are the reasons why I think we're in the situation we're in. Nintendo has been really able to thrive throughout the Switch era because of its success. And they may have wanted the console to come out a bit sooner, but there were some delays, for whatever reason. Nothing super substantial, but a few months, and those few months have perhaps increased the chances of different leaks coming out, as we've been seeing basically every day. And I also think Nintendo has likely been very careful about this transition because they are focusing on just one platform now, not two. So they need to make sure that whatever plan they have is going to be very successful. So they probably are making sure that the deals, the partnerships, the features, the games, most importantly, are all in line and ready to go to really push the Switch 2 to be very successful early on. They want to hit the ground running once they reveal this console, have a strong marketing plan, and come up with some really strong, consistent support right from the get-go. But that's my understanding of the situation. What do you all think? Let me know in the comments below. This is AndresRestart. Thank you so much for listening and watching, and I'll see you all really soon. Take care. Bye.